I was a palm wine drinker since I was a boy of 10 years of age. I had no other work more than to drink palm wine in my life. In those days, we did not know other money except cowries, so that everything was very cheap. And my father was the richest man in our town. My father got 8 children, and I was the eldest among them. All of the rest were hard workers,
Very
but I
few
myself
books
was an
published
expert
around
palm wine
its
drinker.
time attracted so much attention in terms of media reviews and international recognition. The hoopla is all about the originality and uniqueness of the palm wine drinker, written by Amos Tutuola. Tutuola had written in a language and style unknown to standard English, even though he had honestly expressed himself the only way he could. He was grossly misunderstood by his publishers and book critics. His deficiency was construed for a style of writing perfected by an established writer, and the rest is history. Writers of the early days struggled to get their materials published. Many were not as lucky as Tutuola in their efforts to attract the attention of a few overseas publishers whose business offices were available locally, or even their counterparts abroad. Those early arrivants were lured into the country as at the time by the aroma of the publishing opportunities presented by the newly created university at Ibadan. But that was by no means the only reason the publishers came to Ibadan, in trickles at the start and later in droves.
When you eventually became the premier university, no longer the University College of London, we found out that that itself opened the floodgate into publication. You then begin to name, publishers who have come to actually produce books that will help the university to be what it is supposed to be. And that itself had this prevailing effect, on book publication in other parts of the country.
The Oxford University Press had been on ground in distribution capacity prior to the founding of the university, which was situated at Eleyele area of Ibadan. Interestingly, today, all the major publishing concerns have their head offices located in this particular area, meaning they've all been here early days of the University of Ibadan. Only the Oxford University Press had its first office at the CMS building, Idimoli, Lebanon Street, Dugbe, Ibadan. The university moved to its permanent site almost 60 years ago, but the publishers are still located around the temporary site, increasing in number every day. The University of Ibadan's temporary site had since been taken over by another federal institution, a monotechnic called the Federal Cooperative College. The first church in Ibadan, St. David's Kudeti, celebrated its centenary in 1946. The church had declared 102 years of foundational work of spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ and Western education before the university was established in 1948. The Bibles and other textual materials needed in the churches and the schools that almost invariably came with them were supplied by the first bookshops, the CSS bookshop of the CMS, and later Challenge Bookshop.
To be able to read the Bible, you must be literate. The church must teach you how to read and write, and they were doing all these things into the remotest villages.
As we share the gospel, one primary instrument or platform we use is the printed material. The Bible itself is printed. The ministry of the word, usually through the Bible and other means, is usually from the printing form.
School started in the 30s, in the 1920s, all those eras were in most cases started by the churches, the Anglican Church, the Catholic Church, and all their offshoots, Methodists, Baptists, and all of them. So you find out that the church has contributed a lot into publishing in Nigeria, into the literary development, and into people's ability to read.
Other printed materials came directly from Europe through postal service. The demand for books by the bookshops as a result of the needs of schools, the churches, the colonial offices brought the marketing arms of the big publishing firms in Europe to Ibadan.
It's already a legend, that Ibadan is the center of culture, literary renaissance in this country. You cannot think of any other city that is next to Ibadan.
In 1955, the Western regional government then started a free education, which also bolstered the free education in the Western region. And Ibadan being the capital and the headquarters of this region, improved the level of education, publishing, and everything that goes with academics.
Ibadan is also the political headquarters of Western region, Western state, Western zone of this country. And so as Ibadan was developing politically, that itself is a function of education. That itself is a function of publication. That itself is a function of the fact that the people are conscious of the need for them to be actively involved in that process. A process that today has set the pace for political development in this country, which is why Ibadan is called the pace setter.
The other factor that fueled the rush to Ibadan by the book merchants and publishers was the decision of the Western Regional Government of Chief Obafemi Awolowo to run free education at the primary level in 1955.
The early publishing companies, Heinemann, Evans, Longman, Macmillan, Oxford, they all came into Nigeria as marketing outfits of the parent companies in the UK. And what was it about? They used to bring down their books here, and then the sales representatives of those publishing companies will now move from school to school, from ministry to ministry, from bookshop to bookshop, to create awareness. It's always been, that is the pattern.
Ibadan was the capital of the Western region, and a huge number of books required for such an exercise was too tempting for the European publishers to ignore. Therefore, efforts were made to make the local materials available. The stage is now set for the publishing of local textbooks for teaching at the lower level and for studies at the higher level.
Now, curriculum changed, whereby primary books and secondary books have to be of local content. We were no more importing primary books, secondary school books from abroad, because they have to conform with the curriculum that had been designed for our system. So people started writing.
To make omelets, you must break eggs. To make local books, you must have locally written materials. So, where were the materials? Better still, where were the writers? Answers to these questions were provided by a crop of brilliant University of Ibadan trained writers in persons of Cyprian Ekwensi, Wole Soyinka, Chinua Achebe, T.M. Aluko, J.P. Clark, Ayo Banjo, among others.
Circumstances then, when those ones that you first mentioned, the Wole Soyinka, the Achebe, Ekwensi, when they were publishing, they were just blazing the trail. They were the first. And then, fortunately, they were not only the first, they were really very good. In other words, they served as a role model for the new ones. And I suspect that many of the new ones that we are now having are trying to, as much as possible, model their own writings after the ones by the big names.
Another group were those who were either trained as school teachers in the university or missionary schools, or as academics at Fura Bay College in Sierra Leone. Examples of these were J.F. Odunjo, who created Alawiye Books 1 to 6 that have been in use for generations, and D.O. Bagunwa, Nigeria's famous fiction writer in indigenous language. He wrote Ogbojode Ninu Igbo Irumole, translated by Wole Soyinka as The Forest of 1,000 Demons, and numerous others like Igbo Olodumare, also translated by Wole Soyinka as Forest of Olodumare. We also have a group of writers who were trained outside the country and were among the university teachers at the inception, like Ade Ajayi, Grace Alele Williams, Saburi Biobaku, Bekena Tamuno, and many others. This first set of local writers challenged others within to produce most of the earliest texts published in Ibadan. The story is told of how Chinua Achebe's timeless masterpiece, Things Fall Apart, was almost not published.
It's just providence. Because Achebe wrote it and sent it to Heinemann, and they dumped it aside. They were not interested in it. And it was a question of, what type of book? Somebody, who is that from Africa who will write a book we are now? And they almost didn't publish it. Until one professor read it and said, this is the best I have seen in recent times. That's how Heinemann took the thing and it became a bestseller.
Although the books were created and published in Ibadan, they were distributed all over Nigeria and beyond. What challenges were there for the publishers to get their wares to the target consumers within and outside Ibadan and the Western region as a whole? The publishers came to find the writers in Ibadan, the only university town as it was then in the country, until much later when other schools came along.
From the University of Ibadan, many other institutions have grown. You will recall that the University of Ife started from Ibadan. University of Jos used to be called University of Ibadan, Jos Center or something of that sort. And many of the people who have led universities or are leading universities at this particular moment, many of them have drawn from Ibadan. So Ibadan is the center of it all. And to crown it all, the publishing industry have taken a great cue from this, and many of the publishing centers are in Ibadan.
What was the relationship like between the publisher and the writer? How creatively competitive were the materials on offer for publication? And how handsomely were the works rewarded after acceptance?
I don't know of any writer in this country who lives off the proceeds of his own publications. I do not know of any, except the soft sell writer, somebody who writes, for magazines, or is a journalist. And if you're a journalist, you already get paid, whether you write creatively or you don't write creatively. I think the allure, the name, I am a poet, I am a novelist, I've entered my work for a particular competition. That alone is a pressure that will make somebody want to publish at any cost.
A bookseller doesn't talk about book business as being lucrative. It's a business of passion. Okay, and if you really have to big money, then this is not the trade to be in. But having said that, it's a business nonetheless, and you need to make a clear margin to be able to sustain your developmental processes, pay your staff, okay, grow it and make it a better bookshop.
If there are lucrative publishing houses, there must be those that find favor with government and they have their books adopted by government. Otherwise, if they are dealing with general book publishing, they are not going to be lucrative. I mean, they may be there. They will be alive struggling to pay salaries and things and hoping for the breakthrough. But if the breakthrough doesn't come, Too bad.
The bookshops no doubt play a major role in getting the books to the end users.
You see, what you see there in physical sense are the books, but you're largely seeing souls, voices from various parts of the country and from various parts of the world. And so people come in here to embrace different ideas, make selections as they desire. So that's what the bookshop says.
What I know used to happen in the 80s when we started publishing is, if you went to a school to promote books, at the end of the day, if your books are recommended, you, the sales rep, will now go into town to bookshops there and say, I went to school ABC. These are the books that have been recommended. And then the booksellers themselves will now go out to purchase and stock.
While some stock only books for lower schools, other bookshops stock books for all levels of learning, including professional and liturgical materials. That's why some observers say there are bookshops and there are bookshops.
All over the country, there was one particular bookshop that every person knew, Odushote. Wherever you were, you hear of Odushote. And there is no part of the country where you have that kind of name, or where you have that kind of bookshop, you now say it's a bookshop.
Let's take it back. The first bookshop in the country was a CMS bookshop established in 1869. And then when the University of Ibadan was established, they had a bookshop then that catered largely for tertiary books, and they served the whole country very, very well. Years later, it was a private company, I think it was Odushote Bookstore, that took over from where the University of Ibadan bookshop stopped by providing tertiary books across the country. And I like to think that perhaps we have taken over from that role, and we have the biggest collection in the country at the moment.
In fact, I can say that we have the most organized bookshop within Ibadan city in Nigeria. Once you get in there, you pick a book like this, they scan it, it will give you the price, it will give you the quantity that has been sold, the quantity remaining in store, and everything. And you can get whatever type of books you want there. Of course, all over the country there are bookshops.
Book salesmen also have a modus operandi that targets not only bookshops in their distribution efforts, but many other consumers. Now, who are these other consumers and how effective are they in moving the published volumes?
The library is where you have books being produced by publishers that has been written by authors. So the three of them have something in common. It's a tripartite function that is being performed, and library is there to produce the information to the readers, to end users of the books. So when you come to a library, you have the author in mind, or you have a book be published by an author or by a publisher. It is the library that will expose you to various information that you need.
Ibadan has no doubt been a friendly town to the book business because of its population, its geographical and political position, and most importantly, because of its proximity to the source of publishable materials at the university and environs.
The people are friendly, the people are good. And when you find a people with these attributes, you're going to find that development, will be rapid in such a city. This is why we now have, the University of Ibadan sitting there on vast expanse of land given by the people due to the people's generosity. Hardly would you find a publisher who does not have a degree of Ibadan. 80% of them will be from UI, in terms of the fact that being the city that houses the first university. You find that all the old writers, the young writers, all of them, that's why Ibadan today houses the headquarters of the Nigerian Association, the Association of Nigerian Authors. And that's why, even up to today, if you can't find some materials, you come to Ibadan. And any material you can't find in Ibadan, go into the archives, you are not likely going to find.
About 70 years on, it is still enjoying that prime of place with a lot of changes here and there.
When I came into publishing, they were doing setting. That is, you have a material like this, you have paper. I mean, you have this material, you have cast, metal casts. Words will be on metal casts. You arrange the words A, Ibadan, Lagos. You arrange I, B, A, D, A, N. Bond them together and put everything in a metal. Then you go into the printing and it comes out. But and then we went into the area of pasting. The graphic artist will cut and paste. Then you have what we call the camera ready copy, CRC, and you go on to films. All those things are gone now.
My first novel was brought to a publisher in Ibadan. It took them 7 years to publish. I should have been wise, because when I got there, somebody was complaining that he had the book there with them for 3 years and they didn't do anything. He was taking his book away, but I stupidly continued. I finished the book in 76, so it had been like 78 or so. So it took 7 years after that for the book to be published. So I have that experience, and we all have that, because the authors, in the old days, publishers were inundated with a large number of authors, and they had little budgets. So they selected very, very, very stringently, and it was very difficult to get books published. Nowadays, book publishing is so much easier, because there's a lot of self-publishing, number one. There are many more publishing houses, number two. And you can also publish in a way that you don't have to publish 1,000 copies or 2,000 copies. You can, and now people are beginning to publish online, so it's getting a lot more of the word is getting out there in a very much easier and cheaper way.
The arrival of the digital book, however, is presenting a scenario that some publishers think might create a logjam because of our ICT infrastructure and the available knowledge across board. But some stakeholders are saying no cause for alarm.
In Kenya, what they do is almost everybody has, most people have internet-ready telephones. They read storybooks and such books on their mobile phones. Eventually, they go on to purchase the physical copy. What I'm trying to say is that the computer age would eventually help in developing more of publishing.
So much has been said about Ibadan and the book business. How have the people in Ibadan taken advantage of the endless book opportunities that slap their brows on a daily basis? What is the reading culture in Ibadan like when compared with what's obtainable elsewhere in the country?
In the olden days, people used to pride themselves about books they read. People exchange novels, and at a particular point in time, you'll be asking yourself, what book are you reading now? But nowadays, if you ask them, do you read? They say yes. And you ask them, what book are you reading now? They go blank.
I just think that we have lost the value of the reading culture. We've lost the value of books. We've changed our reading culture to reading text messages, to reading Twitter, to reading tweets, and to reading blogs. So reality has taken over from reading the story of Robinson Crusoe and so on. People want the reality of your life. I'm on the toilet. I'm washing my hands. I'm cleaning my teeth. What are you doing now? I'm in a bus going to Dubai. That's what people want to know about. They're not interested in hearing about Abimbola, which we read in school, about how he had an accident and how he recovered and so on. People they're not interested in stories like that. They want to tell their own story. And group of people, they're all on the phone. So they're literate, they're texting some way, but they're just giving information about what am I doing. I'm eating amala with ewedu.
That's why we have what we call the reading campaign promotion. We go about schools, to see the resources they have. If they have library, we see how functional it is. We advise them, and we are trying to promote the formation of reading club, book club in all our schools.
I've always asked people, how many parents will, during the child's birthday, will buy a book and say, this is your birthday present? And of course, the child will start reading if he sees that you yourself read. But if you come back each day, and after eating, you watch television and you go to sleep, he wouldn't see you lift a single book to read. How can he imbibe that culture?
To round off, how much of Ibadan book influence is felt outside our borders? If one looks at the African Writers series of Heinemann and other series, stopped for the West African Examination Certificate, WAEC, and other regional examinations.
When Things Fall Apart were published, they made Achebe the editor of the African Writers series. So most books passed through Achebe, who had to edit it, who had to give opinion, and of course with let's Agbo Jehigo in Nigeria, and there used to be one Henry Chakava in Kenya. So the East African section was covered, the West African section was covered in terms of bringing out books, and people were encouraged to write.